What is up, weather enthusiasts? I'm your host, Pat's Path Predictor. Let's get right into the weather. Alright, so here's the situation we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. This is Hurricane Aaron right here. It's currently undergoing an eyewall replacement cycle this morning and this afternoon as we're recording this. But this is the situation that we have for you right here. Still a powerful Category 3 hurricane. At this current point, expected to re-intensify to Category 4 strength. We also have another area of interest that was tagged last night by the National Hurricane Center that could pose a big threat to the Caribbean as well as the Lesser Antilles and even the Greater Antilles in the long run. So we're going to want to watch out for that too. So with that being said, let's go ahead and dive right into it right here. Starting off with the Hurricane Aaron's advisory right here. This is what we got for you right here. Maximum sustained winds are at 125 miles per hour. Minimum central pressure rose to 946 millibars. Its current location is 21 degrees north, 67.4 degrees west. It's currently moving west-northwest at 13 miles per hour, so it is slowing down right here. The big news, though, is we do have tropical storm warnings in effect for parts of the Turks and Caicos because of how much the system has expanded in size. We can go ahead and show you the cone right here. Tropical storm warnings are now in effect for the Turks and Caicos. We have tropical storm watches in effect for parts of the Bahamas as well, so you're going to want to pay attention to those areas as well. But my goodness, this really has grown in size quite a bit. And taking a look at the public advisory for you guys right here and taking a quick gander at this, we're looking at hurricane force winds extending outward to 25 miles from the center and tropical storm force winds 205 miles from the center. So that is quite a serious concern. Hazards affecting land, heavy rainfall for parts of Puerto Rico and for parts of the Bahamas as well. You're looking at winds with this for the Turks and Caicos beginning tonight. We're looking at surf and swells all across the East Coast and the Greater Antilles, so you're going to want to watch out for that as well. Here's our quick discussion we have from the NHC right here as well. So here we go. Aaron's eye is no longer evident on satellite imagery, and observations from Air Force Hurricane Hunters, indicate that the maximum sustained winds are near 110 knots. The central pressure has risen a bit this morning, probably due the slight decrease is probably due to an eyewall replacement cycle in the inner core as reported by hurricane hunters and is likely a temporary short-term fluctuation. The system remains a well-organized and dangerous major hurricane with an impressively symmetric cloud pattern. Upper-level flow is strong over all quadrants of the system right here. Aaron should remain over very warm waters with moderate vertical wind shear and in a moist low to mid-level air mass during the next 48 to 72 hours. Therefore, some renewed increase in strength is expected within the next couple of days. The NHC intensity forecast is in good agreement with the latest corrected consensus model, HCCA. In any event, Aaron should remain a dangerous major hurricane through the middle of this week. Aaron is also growing in size, and that trend is expected to continue over the next few days. The expanding wind field will result in rough ocean conditions over much of the western Atlantic. It should be noted that in the 34 to 50 hour wind speed probabilities beyond 36 hours in the text and graphical products are likely underestimating the risk of those winds occurring. This is because the forecast wind field of Aaron is considerably larger than average compared to the wind field used to derive wind speed probability product. So that's something you're going to want to consider. That's something they didn't even consider when they issued those watches, and they didn't issue those warnings in Puerto Rico and the Leeward Islands over there as well, so that's something to keep in mind. Expected to get up to a mid-range Category 4 hurricane, 145 miles per hour in the next 24 hours. Then gradual weakening is expected as it moves into more shear. It starts to weaken as it moves into cooler waters later down the road. And looking at the cone for you once again, once we get to about Thursday, we're going to be north of that warmer water, and then by the time we get to Friday, it's going to be around 27 degrees Celsius, kind of where we started off with Aaron in the main development region. So you're going to want to pay attention to that as well, but still impacts are expected for parts of the Turks and Caicos and Bahamas right there, so you're going to want to watch out for that as well. So that's what we have with Aaron right here. We're also going to be talking about today this area of interest right here. So let's go ahead and read out the advisory right here for you guys. A tropical wave located near the Cabo Verde Islands is producing disorganized showers and thunderstorms. Some gradual development of the system is possible during the middle to latter portion of the week, while the system moves west to west-northwestward at 15 to 20 miles per hour across the eastern and central tropical Atlantic. It's in the next in the next 7 days, we're looking at a 20% chance of formation right here. And another thing to note is this area of interest in this wave that's currently over, southwest of the Cabo Verdes right here, is actually further south than Aaron was, and that's putting more of the Lesser Antilles, particularly Guadalupe, Dominica, and a lot of other areas in the Leeward and Windward Islands in the line of fire with this. And in the long-term trends, we are potentially seeing this system potentially heading towards the Greater Antilles as well and causing impacts over there. We'll talk more about that in a little bit, but my main focus for right now will be on Aaron for you guys right here. We're going to go ahead and load up the DAPIA website for you guys right here. Seizure warning to those prone to flashing lights. I do apologize, but this is what we've had, at least according to the latest satellite imagery right here. This might take a second for it to load, so let's go ahead and wait. And we're getting close to that loading right here. So in a second, we'll start getting that satellite imagery to show you guys right here. Let's go ahead and do this and that, and then do one more of these, and then we can go ahead and start looking at this right here. Once again, seizure warning, I do apologize, but you are noticing this is still a pretty healthy storm right here, just undergoing an eyewall replacement cycle. But look at this, ladies and gentlemen. This system has really expanded in size considerably across all quadrants, particularly in the southern and the western side, as we've seen from last night when we were streaming. And from what we've got right here, it's even starting to expand further up into the north in more of that vertical shear area, so you're going to want to pay attention to that as well. But even as this is completing its eyewall replacement cycle, this is still a very healthy storm to pay attention to, and we will keep you updated on that here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. But that's kind of your situation that we have with Aaron right here based on satellites, currently moving north of the Greater Antilles right here, north of Puerto Rico and Hispaniola, actually causing quite a bit of flooding in those areas right there. We've seen a lot of flash flood warnings as well right there, as well as tropical storm force winds in those regions too. So that is something you're going to want to keep in mind. Turks and Caicos are in the line of fire. They're going to want to pay attention to this as well. Aaron starts to make an approach and bring those conditions to those areas right there. And looking at some models for you guys right here, we're going to go ahead and show you the hurricane models right here. We're going to show these a little bit early on and talk about a little bit about conditions, because we need to tie that into what's also going to be potentially happening in the next week or so in the main development region and in the Caribbean. So we're going to be kind of combining two systems at once for today's video. So here's what we have for the H-Wharf right here based on what we got right here. Here's the main sea level pressure winds right here. The storm is going to greatly expand in size right here as it starts to make that turn to the northwest and then eventually to the north. It's expected to be Category 4 strength once again. And then start to weaken to Category 3 by the time we get to 2 to 3 days out. And then things start to weaken due to stronger shear. But look at how large this wind field is. This system is really expanded in size right here. So you're going to want to pay attention to that as well. We'll keep you updated on that. But my goodness, that really expands out 5 days from now as this moves through the subtropics, and I would not be surprised if we start seeing a transition towards an extratropical cyclone with this, so we'll keep you updated on that right here with that's the H-Wharf. Here is the H-Mon for you guys right here. H-Mon has the system strengthening once again to Category 4 intensity, then starting to weaken to Category 3, but likely due to an eyewall replacement cycle once again. But my goodness, the wind field really expands throughout the next 36 hours right here. Tropical storm force winds extend outward quite a bit, potentially double what they are right now, which is pretty scary to even think about right here, because that's going to only cause more impacts. It's going to expand the impacts potentially towards more of the Bahamas as well, and the east coast of the United States, especially with those rip currents. Maybe some of the outer bands do end up kind of moving that area, just staying just offshore, which would kind of be a very close near miss right there. Then as we get to the next 3 days right here, it starts to considerably weaken to Category 2 intensity right here, and then to Category 1 by 5 days out. So we're going to want to watch that as well, according to the H-bomb. But this is kind of how you're seeing this transition to an extratropical cyclone. Looking at the radar as well, yeah, that's in the transition phase by the time we get to 5 days out towards less of a tropical cyclone and more of a mid-latitude cyclone right there. So we're going to want to pay attention to that as well. Looking at the halves A for you right here, taking a quick gander at that. Halves A, pretty compact starting right here. Once again, strengthens. The halves A actually wants this to get back up to Category 5 intensity today, but we'll have to see how that pans out, but still, potentially a Category 5 resurgence with this. It's still going to be in good conditions to do that. It's still going to be in plenty of warm water and decent wind shear to do that. The main thing I'm concerned about is generally, when is this eyewall replacement cycle going to complete, and is the wind shear potentially going to chip away at the structure enough to kind of not allow for as much strengthening to happen. I remember this happening with Hurricane Lee back a couple of years ago. It blew up to a Category 5 storm, but then it started to encounter some shear to the northwest and then underwent an eyewall replacement cycle, and then pretty much the Lee never fully recovered from that from that whole situation. It was just a bad combination at a bad time for the system, and ultimately it would never really get past Category 3 intensity again, and then made landfall in parts of Canada as well as a Category 1. So that's something to consider right there. But then the system starts to make that turn while expanding in storm size right here, potentially putting more of the Bahamas and areas to the west in the line of fire again. But basically Category 4 intensity, and then high-end Category 3 as we move to 3 days out. And then as we get to about 4 days out, the storm size really expands out. Matter of fact, this is the Outer Banks over here on the northwest right here. This could potentially reach that area. Let me go ahead and look at rain and main sea level pressure. Yeah, a few showers from Aaron could potentially get over there, which would be a pretty close near miss right there for the Outer Banks right there. But still, the main threat will be kind of gusty winds and surf, obviously, so that's something you're going to want to pay attention to. But by the time we get to about 5 days out, it starts to transition into an extratropical cyclone, so that's kind of what we're dealing with right there with the halves A. Looking at the halves B, for you guys right there, the halves B is actually starting to load in for the 12Z, but we won't really have much time to look at it. But the halves B really wraps up and really ramps up in intensity right here. Taking a quick look at this, really starts to re-intensify to a 917 millibar system. The halves B wants the system to re-strengthen to a 180 mile per hour hurricane. I'm going to be honest, that seems a little far-fetched right now, especially given that it needs to complete the eyeball replacement cycle. Personally, I think 150 would be a good max for it. If it really wanted to, like the absolute maximum, I could see 160 with it, but that's my personal opinion for you guys right there at this current point. But it starts to expand in size again due to an eyewall replacement cycle, and really brings impacts to parts of the Turks and Caicos and the Bahamas, as well as the system starts to move out towards sea right here. And then as the system moves further to the west, that's the Outer Banks right there. The halves B actually has near tropical storm force winds impacting those areas right there. So if that expands in size considerably, like what the halves A and B are showing, we could potentially see tropical storm watches or warnings for those areas right there in the next couple of days. So you're going to want to pay attention to that. And then as the system moves out to sea, it starts to transition to an extratropical cyclone. So that's kind of the factors that we're paying attention to as well. So that's kind of what we have with Aaron for the latest for that. We are expecting re-strengthening, more impacts to the Bahamas, and potentially the Outer Banks of North Carolina as well. So you're going to want to take that pretty seriously if you're in those regions right there especially. But we're also paying attention to the next tropical wave that is currently in the main development region. So let's go ahead and take a quick gander at some of those conditions right here and some of those models that are showing that, because Ensembles are picking up on it. We're starting to notice the conditions getting better for that as well, and we're going to go ahead and show you that right now. Starting off, this is your global sea surface temperatures right here. Basically, what is going to be happening is where it's at right now, it's actually an area of about 27 degrees Celsius, maybe 28 in a few isolated spots right there, but it's actually going to remain in relatively warm waters for much of its time frame. I would personally not see this develop until it got closer to the Leeward Islands right here, probably not till the later part of this week, like the NHC is saying, and part of that is because of the water temperatures, and part of that is maybe because of some dry air that's in the area. We'll look at that in a second, but As you get further to the west, you're looking at water temperatures gradually increasing throughout much of its run right here, similar to what we saw with Aaron. So it may be just a tropical wave right here, but like we had with Aaron, this could be a potentially like a scary tropical wave, especially with the conditions it has in front of it right there. The water temperatures are pretty primed for development. You have 28 degrees Celsius right here, and then you have what we got right here, 29 degrees Celsius as you're approaching the Lesser Antilles right here. So even if it does move further to the north, closer towards Aaron's track right here, it's still going to impact the Lesser Antilles right here, and still going to be in those same water temperatures because Aaron really hasn't cooled off the water temperatures that much because of how quickly it's moving. When it starts to make that turn to the north, it might cool off the waters over here in parts of the Bahamas right here, but still, it's not going to really make that much of a dent when you think about it right here because you're looking at 30 degrees Celsius of water to kind of mush through. Aaron's going to have no issue, and this system's going to have no issue with a cold wake behind it just because of how warm those waters are and because of how deep they are as well. Looking at ocean heat content for you guys right here, let's go ahead and go to the latest map. Yeah, ocean heat content's still not going to be necessarily a big issue, especially with where the system is right now, currently in the MDR. It's in an area of about 25-ish OHC, but as it moves further to the west, it's going to be in about 50, then 75, then really jumps up to 100 OHC. And you do see a small decrease over the Dominican Republic because of Aaron, but that's not really making that much of a dent right there, and you're still going to have plenty of time in the season for that to recover quite easily, honestly. I remember when Beryl kind of maybe made a slight dent to the Caribbean SSTs and the OHC, that quickly recovered within about 2 weeks. And considering this is mid-August at this current point, I could see a similar time frame of these recovering as long as this system may take a similar path right here, so we'll have to pay attention to that. But still, 100 plus OHC as it approaches the Lesser Antilles, and if it moves towards the Greater Antilles, you're still going to see a significant amount of OHC in those areas as well, so you're going to have to pay attention to that as well. The one thing I am concerned about in terms of development is wind shear, so that's something to keep in mind as well, especially with the outflow of Aaron as it moves further to the north. Let's go ahead and take a quick gander at the wind shear probabilities for you right here. And I'll actually go ahead and pull up the European as well. This is the 0Z Euro that we have for you right here, just to kind of give you some context. Just trying to give you a gander of what's going on. So here's what you have with the wind shear. Yes, there is some more shear kind of moving into parts of the MDR, but that is expected to kind of stay out of the region right here. And this area of interest does start to organize and develop. There is a bit of an anticyclone that kind of does start to build up over here. A lot of the shear that's affiliated with Aaron mainly stays to the west of it right here, so that's part of the reason I'm not so concerned about it. And by the time we get to like 5 days out right here, a lot of this shear kind of stays away from this area of interest right here, partly because it's moving further to the north and partly because its outflow and shear is getting caught into this jet over here, and that's going to kind of keep it away from the tropics. So that's part of the reason right there. I would be a little interested in watching for this TUT right here as well as this one, this low pressure system as well. So you're going to want to keep those in mind. But yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say shear is going to be that big of an issue with this system, especially as it moves further to the west and potentially towards the Greater Antilles and Lesser Antilles as well. Let's go ahead and look at the dry air aspect of it. There's really not that much of a dry air aspect of it, to be honest, right here. It's in a pretty good moisture pocket right here, and yes, there is some dry air to the northwest of it, but as long as the system can produce convection and mix this dry air out, it should not have very significant problems with that right there, especially with the fact that there's not very much wind shear that's going to be surrounding that as well. And looking at the ensembles for you guys right here, here is what we have for the 0Z Euro that we have, ladies and gentlemen. And look at this. We have pretty strong support with this. It's mainly going to stay, I'd say, around tropical storm strength, especially if it moves over the Antilles right here, the Greater Antilles right here. But still, you have quite a bit of model support affiliated with this. The NHC has definitely tagged this. The Climate Prediction Center has definitely tagged this. And that's something you're going to want to watch, especially after Aaron, because this actually could pose a greater threat to land. So those are some factors that we're going to be watching. And so you're in the Lesser Antilles, you're going to want to watch this very closely. You are in that yellow cone that the NHC put out, and we'll keep you updated here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and close the video out right here. I do not plan on streaming tonight because I have a few other things that I need to take care of. and I'm not going to be streaming tomorrow either. So the next stream will be on Tuesday, discussing this area of interest if needed, and what's going on with Aaron. So please be tuned for that. But in the meantime, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Goal, as always, is to get more people engaged with weather. If you'd like to help out, hang out, or ask us questions, join the Storms United Discord server. The link to that is in the end screen. And with that being said, have a wonderful day, guys. Stay safe.